Hi, this is Neil of Team Teacher, teaching, living and raising a family in China. Today, in this video, we're going to look at a World Book Day PowerPoint lesson. Let's check it out. So World Book Day is celebrated around the world and it's also celebrated in China. Normally, World Book Day is somewhere in March or April. In China, it's the fourth Thursday of March, so I have that up here. And what I do with the children here is I explain that World Book Day, people celebrate, people tell everyone how much they like books, and they do this by putting on the same clothes as the people in the books. And I point out here Harry Potter, Cat in a Hat, these ones that they might be already familiar with. And I get them to repeat dress up, and I see and ask if there are any characters that they like to dress up as, and I say I dress up as Harry Potter, and they probably remember that from Halloween, which I tend to do every year. Now here I'm asking them, what can you do on book day? So we can read a lot of interesting books, and this is a phrase that I get them to repeat, and it's something that's also in the curriculum as well, so it will mean it will appear on their test later. So I think it's a good one for them to memorize and drill. And then we go into flashcards and vocabulary. So we have book day, so I get them to repeat that, and I'll also ask them how many books they have. It's pretty funny, some of their responses. This particular lesson is aimed for primary and elementary level students, so you know their level isn't that high at all, especially in Chinese public schools, so you're probably going to get quite a low number, even though they probably have many more at home. And here we're talking about bookmarks. I'll ask them if they have a bookmark, get them to show me the bookmarks, ask them what color these bookmarks are and stuff like that. Don't really go too much into what bookmarks do. I think it's pretty obvious, and I'll demonstrate with the bookmark that I have. And from here we actually go into a song. This song's by Barney. It's called Books Are Fun. It's quite repetitive, and it's quite a simple song to follow along, and it helps break up the class, and we do a little dance where we're holding the books and singing along. So this particular part of the PowerPoint you can actually use for multiple different media. So you could actually use for movies and TV. I kind of mix it up and put them together, and this is talking about genres. I won't actually have them repeat this word, but you know, it's just the different types, and I'll explain as I go to the students and that they pick it up. So first off, we're talking about comedy. Now, a lot of the words in this particular PowerPoint, this is all these types and genres aren't included within their curriculum. So that's why I've got the Chinese characters in there to kind of prompt it, and it saves me doing a lot more explanation, and I can get more into doing games and more into doing songs and activities. So comedy, I'm gonna be actually motioning this, doing a ha-ha, making funny faces, stuff like that sort of thing. And then I'm going to ask them if they like comedy books. So I ask the question, do you like comedy books? And they can either say, yes, I like comedy books, or no, I don't like comedy books. And I'll ping a couple of these questions out and get a couple of different students raising their hands and telling me how much they like these comedy books. But it's important that you make them say the full sentence, correct sentence. And then I have a whole bunch of different types of genres. So fantasy, remember I am based in China, so a lot of the images and books I'm using are ones that I know have been released or are popular in China, that it's going to be easy for the students to understand. You can change it up depending on your students and where you're located. but Journey to the West is hugely popular as a fantasy type of book and movie. So with fantasy, I'm gonna be asking students what they see, what can you see in a fantasy movie, a fantasy book, and depending on their level, they're going to give you different vocabulary. Stuff like, I know that what they will say is probably dragons, magic, and monsters, this sort of thing. And then we talk about, do you like fantasy books? So it's a pattern that I'm using that I get accustomed to. Same with sci-fi. What can you see in sci-fi? They're going to say robots, rockets. These words are very common even for those Chinese students that don't really know English that well, because they could be quite similar sounding. Same with action. They're going to say cars, they're going to say guns, they get emotion of like doing kung fu or fighting and stuff like that. And for action, I chose comic books, as you know, it's kind of a little bit more visual. And cartoon as well, sometimes they can get a bit confused with this, but I find the simplest way to sort of explain it is there's people and then there's picture people. Because sometimes you have those cartoons, you have the Mr. Bean cartoon where there's Mr. Bean as a real person, and then there's Mr. Bean where he's a picture person, and generally they kind of understand that. So from there, we actually go into the game. So this one, they have to choose what genre it is. Remember, these words I've only just introduced, and we've only just drilled and recited, so they might not be able to say some of these words. So what I've done is I've actually included 1, 2, and 3, so even the lowest level students can participate, and that's what I'm about in my classes, as much participation and interaction and feeling like you're part of the class as possible. You might think, well, the wall is, maybe too graphic for students in China, but you got to remember they have a universal rating system over here, so they can go and watch even the goriest things, but they'll be heavily censored anyway, so don't worry about that. So after doing the games, we'll actually go into a song. The song is actually Justin Bieber's Baby, but this great school have done a parody video, and instead of saying baby, 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 you say books, books, books. I love books. It's a great song, and the students love it, and it's a little bit high level, but they can at least follow the chorus. And then we play the dress-up game. Basically, this game, what they have to do is they have to look at the cover of the book, and they have to look at the child that's dressed up as a character from the book and decipher what the book is about. Again, it's very simple because my students are very, very low level and they're very young. But the important thing here is that I'm wanting them to use the full sentence. This is my book. It's about, and this one is obviously robots. So we've got a whole bunch of different ones of these that they can work out and choose. And then we have a big open question. So I'm asking a whole bunch of students here what sort of books that they read, and they can say, I read comedy books, I read fantasy books, and see how many I can get to participate and show me their books that they're reading. And then at this point, you have a choice. So one thing that you could do is to get them to make a bookmark. This particular bookmark is the sort of template that I would use because it's very simple and easy for use for me. I just get some card, I can cut it up, I can get a hole punch in a hole, and I've got a bit of string that I can just tie in there, and they can design their own bookmark. And it's very simple and low cost for me, because generally my school does not provide the supplies for this sort of stuff. If you don't have time, you could just go and watch a video, or go straight into a video. This is The Girl Who Hated Books. It's a Canadian animation about this girl that hates books, but the books come to life, and then she falls in love with them. It's about 8 to 9 minutes long. Or you could read a book. This book needs to be pre-taught as the word poop, because it's actually a story about poop. So what happens is this unfortunate little mole, on a summer day, some poop falls on the mole, and then he tries to find out whose poop it is and whose poop it belongs to. It goes through a whole bunch of different animals and their different types of poops. I find it hilarious, the students find it hilarious, and it's pretty fun little story that kind of breaks up the class. And then again, I have this what books do you read, and the film at the end. So it's really towards the end of the class, after doing these what books do you read part, you could either choose to do the craft, you could watch a video, or you could read another story. It's up to you. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel, and remember to check out the link below to download your free copy of this PowerPoint lesson. Bye bye.